I know a little bit about, your experiences with Brian, via, charity gigs and recording and, and obviously meeting him down there in Southwest Florida. But yeah, I mean, how did you guys first meet?
I had just moved to Florida and from New York, and we were here for, I think, 13 days, lucky 13. And a hurricane came through and blew the crap out of everything. And it didn't touch. I had one coconut down in the backyard, and I said, well, that's it. Got to do a hurricane relief concert. So I went to my friends at K-Rock and said, listen, because it really did a lot of damage, that one. It was two of them, actually, Wilma and Charlie. But I think Charlie was the first one that we, and I spoke to, I was doing a guest DJ spot on a K-Rock station. I said we should put on a concert, and they said, oh, great, who can you get? So I called about everybody that I knew, and the owner of the station knew Cliff, had Cliff's number, Cliff Williams. And he said, I'll give you Cliff's number. Will he know who you are? And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, won't take 2 seconds to put it together. And I asked him if he was interested in doing it, and he said, yeah, we'll absolutely do it. And they actually did that show. It was at Germain Arena down here, which is now Hertz Arena. And they did it with 2 or 3 guys that they knew from down here, because the rest of us, Eddie Money and Joe Lynn Turner, Mark Farner, Buck Dharma, Rick and Robin from Cheap Trick, my band backed up all of those. But Cliff and Brian had their own, thing, so they were well into it. And I actually I didn't talk to either one of them, because I was running through the show that night. And I didn't get a chance to really thank anybody. And then I got a call from a guy, a promoter, who was friends with Cliff, and he wanted to know something about me and rang me up, and we had some stuff in common. One thing led to another, and he was, friends with Cliff, and he said, why don't you come over and, we'll all hang out. And that's kind of how it started. I was, so, it's when you're a musician and you're in not a traditionally musical stronghold like Southwest Florida. When you meet another guy that speaks your language, that's a good thing. So we hit it off right away. We're both rock and roll guys. And I said, listen, if you ever want to jam, my guitar player's up in New York, and have him down here, in a day. And he said, yeah, well, my singer's in Sarasota. So I said, oh, okay. And that's how it started.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, I mean, how did the Totally Baked thing kind of come about? Because, I mean, you guys did songs for that.
Craig Shoemaker, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Craig,
gotcha.
Yeah. Craig's the one who, I guess, wrote the film, and he said to Brian, I need a song. It was a pochumentary. And it's funny how that song came about. He said Craig had sent him a cut of the film with no music in it. And the guitar player and I, we were already recording and writing songs in the studio. We had already gotten to that point where we knew we wanted to do that. We didn't know what we were going to do with it, but if you're that, you go do that. And so we wrote a bunch of stuff, and Brian and I had a good time writing together. He was very easy to write with, and it was amazing experience writing with him. So he said, come on up and we'll work on some lyrics. So my guitar player, Mark, and I drove up to Sarasota, and we spent the night at Brian's house, which I think I had done before. I'm it's all lost in translation, but yeah, I think I stayed the night up there because we played golf. It wasn't all music. We did have some extracurricular activities. And so Brian, we get up there that night, we go out to dinner, we go out, on the town in Sarasota, and then we go home. And he said, listen, I'm going to put a film on for you guys. And he played us Craig Shoemaker's pochumentary, Totally Baked. He said, we need to write a little song for this. We need to write a little song for this, mate. It's, and I've got a title. It's called Who Phoned the Law. And so we watched this film I think Brian went off to sleep. We watched the film, and all the imagery. If you've seen the film, we wrote all the imagery from the film into the lyrics of the song, uh, and that's how that happened. And then they wanted to use something else, one or two other things that we had recorded in the studio. Um, so yeah, we just, because we weren't going to be able to release those things at that point anyway. I mean, AC/DC hadn't done Black Ice yet,
Mm.
and they still owed. Well, I don't know. I'm talking out of school. I know they still, or they said they had some obligations still to do another record. So, so the stuff was just sitting there. Wasn't really going to do much, and we did do the tour and that whole thing. But it was no problem lending those songs to the movie. It was just a bit of fun.
Elaborate a little bit, if you would, what it was like working with Brian in the studio. I mean, you're a guy who obviously has a very extensive background and stuff yourself. But yeah, what was it like working and writing with Brian?
It was incredibly surprising, because honestly, I wasn't the biggest AC/DC aficionado, so I wasn't. I knew the difference between Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, but I didn't know the catalog. We didn't cover any of that stuff when we were kids or any of that stuff. So I wasn't, I knew what it was. So when I got to know Cliff and I started to listen to the songs and I started to get to know Brian, I was like, what is this? I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. I mean, he wrote one of the absolute rock and roll anthems in Back in Black, right? So I'm thinking, but I've learned in my years, I've played with some and written with some pretty amazing people. Been very lucky to do that, and it's always been positive. So I just went in with an open head, and Brian came in with a book. He had a book with lyrics in it, and he went through. He said, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Maybe we could build on this." And it was like there was no wall, there was no perimeter, there was no safety net. It was just, let's do this thing. And I can't remember ever making a suggestion or vice versa where the other guy didn't say, that's great, yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm. So it was, and not only was it easy, it was inspiring, because I remember one time Brian was in England. I think he was doing the birthday tour. He had 3 birthdays, one in the States, one in Italy, and one in England. And I think he was in England, and he called me up and he said, Stevie, I'm dancing on the devil's head, mate. And I said, what? Do I want to know what that is? And he said, yeah, I'm at a place called the Devil's Head. It gave me a great idea for a song. We'll call it Blood Alley. And then we wrote Blood Alley, dancing on the devil's head. And it was just so, he's just that kind of guy. He's always scanning for an idea for a song. Amazing.
Now, I'm familiar with 3 of those songs you recorded. The one you just mentioned, I don't know if I've heard that one. Are all those available on YouTube now? I mean, are they out there? I know there's 3. I know Who Phoned the Law is, Chain Gang on the Road, and Shake a Tail. Is that the other one?
I think Chain Gang and Who Phoned the Law are the ones that are on the film. Chase the Tail. That's probably from a different group of songs, but Blood Alley was the one that I was talking about. Well, let's see. We did a Crack. We did, some of them were just working titles. We did Try a Little, which is the song about the stripper.
Okay, yeah.
Going Home All Alone and Only Your Dream Has Been Blown.
Yeah, I'd love
that's
to
Try a Little.
Okay.
That's Try a Little. And Blood Alley is, we had fun writing that. I remember where we were when we were actually in the studio when we were getting ready to cut that one. And he opened up his little book, and we had talked about the Devil's Head in England. And he had written down some lyrics, Blood Alley, and the lyrics to that, what? Lost soul had a hard life, back in the alley in the dead of night, hot blood, steely eyes, black blade in a hand of ice. I don't know, really pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, was there ever any, I mean, you guys did this obviously for the movie. I mean, are you sad that it hasn't gotten like a more of a release, or was it just kind of a fun thing you never really thought of?
Of course, anything that you do like that, you want it to have the most success that it can have. And but don't forget something. Playing with John Entwistle, I wasn't letting the Who, we weren't interfering with the Who, so I
Right.
didn't think that Johnson, Williams, Luongo, and Hit were going to interfere with AC/DC. But the thing that was incredible, recording, and I produced those recordings with those guys, and they were so open. I was really impressed with how attentive, I guess, they were. They were like soldiers, just waiting to be told, "Oh, let's do this, let's do that." It was amazing, and now there were a bunch of things about that session that even in all my time, that still you find a unique little moment here and there, and it was great working with those guys. They were, Cliff. All you ever hear Cliff do is thump the root, boom, 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 boom. But he's really quite a melodic and interesting bass player when he has the space to do it.
Right.
It was pretty amazing.
Oh, nice, man. Nice. I know you guys did some did some tour dates for that too, or you kind of toured that around. How many dates did you guys end up doing?
Maybe less than 20. Between 10 and 20. I really don't remember. The tours after a while start to blur together.
Sure.
I know we did Chicago. I know we did New York, a few dates in New York. We did 2 dates down here. I'd really have to look at the tour book to know, but it was nothing terribly extended, but we did it was a good run. And we played the new material on it, which was cool, because I didn't want to. I certainly didn't mind going out and playing the AC/DC hits with the guys that made them hits, but I didn't want the show to be only that.
Right.
And we were recording, and I said, let's do this. We have to at least play these songs. And they didn't really even. We didn't even get a chance to play them enough for them to, mature into what songs do when you play them live, repetitively. But it was great. It was fun, a lot of energy. And I remember I said to Brian, usually the singer, or in my experience, the singer always likes to write the set list or likes to be involved because it's his voice. And he said, "Oh, no, my son, you make it up. We'll do it, And so the guitar player and I cobbled together a 13-minute medley of like Giving the Dog a Bone, Black and Black, TNT, For Those About to Rock. It was amazing. And playing that thing was great. It was a lot of fun. And when we played New York, we played 2 shows, I think, at BB King's. And AC/DC's manager was there, and one of the executives from Sony Records was there. And this was before anybody knew anything about Black Ice. They hadn't toured in 6 years. I don't even know when the last time they spoke was. And so the guy from Sony said to Cliff, "What are you doing with all this?" And Cliff said, "I don't know. What should I do?" And he said, "Well, what do you think you should do?" And he couldn't really. And so he said, "What are you waiting for?" to Cliff. And I guess, Alvin went back and told the brothers, these guys are messing around with these American players, and maybe you want to think about getting back in the studio. And the next thing I know, we're at Brian's 60th birthday party on a boat in the Sarasota Bay or whatever it is. And Cliff gets on the boat and says, "We got to go to Vancouver." And that's so.
I got you.
I don't. So and let me tell you what, having dealt with John and the Who, I'm used to that kind of stuff. I've you go where you go, and if it had turned into, we had tour dates booked because they said, "Man, we should really do a proper tour." And I had an agent on the West Coast that booked like stupid money dates. We had to blow it all out because they wanted to, but you're not going to turn down Black Ice and the furthering Was didn't that wind up being Malcolm's last album?
It was, yeah, yeah.
So, what do you do when you're faced with that? And if you're me, what do you do when you're faced with that? I was happy to work with those guys. We had some fun. We wrote some great stuff. And, who knows what's around the next corner? That's showbiz, man.
What do you think Brian brought to AC/DC that was different from Bon Scott?
As similar as you may think their voices are, I can sing Bon Scott. In other words, I can hit those notes. I can't hit Brian's notes. So I think what Jonna did was pick up where Bon left off, and he continued in that tradition and growing probably the same way that Bon would have grown had he lived to grow. So I think I think that's as close as I can get to anything like that, is that he picked up that ball and managed to score with it.
I got you. Have you guys been able to stay in touch, recently or in recent years? Oh
yeah. Well, Cliff more so than Brian, because Cliff is a neighbor. So I see Cliff at functions. If I'm playing, he comes because his best friend is my bass player in my band down here. So I see Cliff. Yeah, in season. In the winter, I see Cliff. Brian, it's been a while. Brian's a moving target. But yeah, we're all still. It's hey, it's me, hey, So it's all good. It's all.
Nice, man. Are there any other kind of funny or interesting stories about your experiences with Brian that perhaps come to mind that we didn't cover?
Well, I didn't realize what a foodie he was. And if you go out to eat with Brian Johnson, you really need to know what you're doing. I thought that's, I imagine he's a very memorable customer at various restaurants. I've eaten with him several different settings, and it's always interesting. I'll tell you one quick one, because I don't want to throw. We were at Smith and Wolenska's in Chicago, and it was the whole band. I mean, it was the band and the crew. Brian said, come on, let's all go out. And they bring over something that was supposed to be bread. Now, Brian, has a lot of Italian blood in there, and if the bread's not right, someone's going to pay for it. And he goes, "What's this? Bread? This is not bread. And he starts pulling, and he just went into a bread rant. So yeah, so that's I'll share that with Brian. Well, a funny guy, always on the money, always quick with a joke, sometimes too quick. But we had a good time. We had a good time together.
Nice, man. Nice. You're in Fort Myers, right?
I am.
I love that area. My wife and I come down there at least once a year to Fort Myers Beach and stuff, and we've been coming down there. I've been coming down there almost once a year since I was like a teenager, quite honestly, with my family and stuff too. My brother played college baseball, and so their spring trip was always Fort Myers and Fort Myers Beach in that area. So we just kind of went down there. My uncle had a condo down there, so we just kind of fell in love with that area. But I love it. We're always down there at least once a year.
I love it. I mean, I tell you what, it's my wife is from Louisiana, so she doesn't like the cold. And we lived upstate New York, about 50 miles north of the city, and we were in the mountains to boot. So it was cold and a lot of snow. And but we would always vacate. When I would get off tours with Entwistle or with Leslie West or whoever, the tour was over, I wanted to drive my own car and get to my own place. And we used to drive from New York down to Sanibel. And we would just stay there until I felt like I was ready to go home. And when we decided to move, I thought I wanted to live on Sanibel. So we rented a house there for a month and started looking around at what there was there. And that's the last place you want to live, because it's all touristy and it's real congested.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure back in the day, but when it's like tourist season, like I know getting through there, like it's hours to get just in and out. Because it's crazy.
So we're just on the other side of the bridge we're about maybe 12 minutes from being on the island. So it's close enough. Um, and I love where we are. You wouldn't know that we weren't out in the middle of the woods, and that's not easy to do in Fort Myers.